Hey everyone, welcome back to We Get Everything. So, that moment happened in The Last of Us Season 2. If you haven't watched Season 2, Episode 2 yet, or if you haven't played the video game, turn this video off, go watch it, or play the game, and then come back. Okay, now that we're on the same page, I can say that Joel Miller is dead, murdered at the hands of Abby, the woman who lost her father to Joe's rampage at the end of Season 1. When the game came out in 2020, the discourse surrounding this event was one of the worst things I've ever been a part of. People were so upset that Joel's actions caught up to him that if you visit the Last of Us 2 subreddit, they're still complaining about it 5 years later. Granted, now that Season 2 is out, they have even more to complain about. The backlash to the second game made adapting the source material a double-edged sword. On the one hand, the first game was a simple and straightforward narrative. It was a story about survival and growth, as two characters learn to rely on one another and become close over the course of the 10 or so hours it takes to beat that game. It was really a no-brainer to adapt the first season, as the story resonated with everyone and left room for expansion, such as the Bill and Frank episode. As such, the first season was received extremely well. But for those of us who lived through the release of the second game, we were always nervous about what would happen when Season 2 premiered. After 2 episodes, I have to say that I've really enjoyed it. But it does feel like writers wanted to work around the complaints from the people who didn't enjoy certain aspects of the second game. The first being the casting of Kaitlyn Dever as Abby. Dever isn't the physically imposing person that Abby from the game was. There are very few actresses who would have been good enough to deliver a performance necessary while also being muscular enough. In the game, Abby is an amalgamation of 3 separate women, one for the body, one for the face, and another for the performance. You're obviously not able to do that for a television show. I think that Dever has done a pretty amazing job so far. However, I've seen fans of the game complain about how Abby made her body a weapon in the game and how that was too important to not include in the adaptation. Personally, I think that it works, and furthermore, it makes sense when you compare her to Bella Ramsey, who is also very small. You have to believe that Ellie is going to make good on those threats to kill Abby at the end of episode 2, and I don't know how convincing it would be if Abby looked like the Abby from the game. The biggest change surrounding Abby thus far is the clear motivation for her actions. In the game, you don't know what Joel did to earn a golf club from the head from Abby when it happens. You only know that Abby and her friends were looking for him and happened upon him during the infected horde scene. This was intentional, as you weren't supposed to sympathize with her while you were hunting her and her friends down. You're supposed to feel the hatred for her in the same way that the character in the game did. That was, of course, until partway through the game, you play as Abby, and you come to understand her motivation, and to appreciate her as a full character. For the show, they let you know who Abby is and what motivates her. Joel massacred her friends and, most importantly, her father. When they have that confrontation in the ski lodge, you know why it's happening, and so it allows her to let Joel know what he's taken from her. I think for television, this makes sense. I would have rathered that there was a build-up to her doing this, where you learn about her character first and then her motivation second, but because this season's going to be split into 2 parts, it makes sense that the showrunners wanted you to understand Abby as soon as possible. I also really enjoy the changes of having Dina and Joel together before it happens rather than Tommy. One of the many things people complain about was that Tommy and Joel were hardened veterans, people who survived the fall of civilization, and wouldn't make the mistake of telling strangers they just met their names. And while I do think that there's something to be said about Jackson making them soft and not on edge, the show got rid of that issue entirely by having Dina call out for Joel in a moment of high stress. Jackson's being attacked by infected, they need to get back there to help. Joel was missing for a moment, and Dina needed to reconnect with him. This also gives Dina some narrative importance that wasn't there in the game. She knows who Abby's friends are, and she may even feel guilty for not being able to help save Joel. It makes sense that she would want to help Ellie in her quest for revenge. In fact, the revenge may only be possible with her help. Another huge departure from the game is the horde attacking Jackson proper and Tommy having to defend it. Tommy's motivations to hunt down Abby and her friends are clear. They killed his brother, and of course he's going to be compelled to hunt them down. Aside from the spectacle of the attack, it served to throw Joel off of his game. We see him looking over his shoulder, watching as the home he's helped to literally build is under siege while he's up in the mountain. He goes back to the lodge with Abby because she promises that her friends can help. Instead of being cautious, he's desperate. He makes a mistake. He puts himself in a position where he has no control. When they get back to the ski lodge, we see Joel looking out the window, distracted by what's happening at home, not realizing that the people around him are wolves in sheep's clothing until it's too late. They shoot him in the leg, and from then on, there's no hope to fight back, no way to go out in a blaze of glory. Just the consequences of his choices staring him in the face in Abby. Joel makes a mistake, going against his own stance on helping outsiders that we saw in the premiere. He probably wouldn't have been so prone to making that mistake if Jackson weren't actively under attack. The attack also shows Tommy as a badass fighter, someone who can 1v1 a bloater and come out on the other side. Something the audience needs to understand for what's going to happen later in the story. So to conclude, is The Last of Us Season 2 a perfect one-to-one adaptation of the source material? No. But it's just that, an adaptation. One that leaves viewers who played the game and those who didn't on the edge of their seats, while hitting many of the most important story beats. I love what the show has done so far, but I'm not precious about adaptations, unless they completely stray away from the source material like the new Until Dawn movie seems to be doing. It would have been easy for the show to keep Joel around longer. I expect HBO executives wanted to have the extremely popular Pedro Pascal for as long as possible, but ultimately, there's a story that needs to be told. Killing him off in episode 2 was a bold choice for the show in the same way that it was a bold choice for the game. We'll have to see what the backlash will be. I've already seen people who have sworn off the show forever, which, is fair, but there's still a lot of good stuff to come, so I hope that people stick around. So, what did you think of Joel's death, either in the game or the show? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe for more essays about video games, movies, and television shows. I also have a Last of Us podcast if you want to hear me go more in depth on my thoughts about the show. It's called Worth Fighting For, and you can find it on YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.